Hey everyone, so now we're in this section on how to draw hair, and I'm just going to be going through how to draw hair simply. So let's first start off with ribbons. So why ribbons? The reason why we do ribbons is because that's actually a very fundamental shape that I feel like a lot of artists don't really take into account unless it's like animators, for example. But ribbons are generally a simple way to draw because it's mainly putting things into 2D. So what I mean by that is rather than, let's say, a form, you don't have to draw a form and just shade it in like that, although you definitely could. You could always start off with, drawing flat shapes first. So let's say, for instance, let me zoom in. So you have one flat shape here, and then you can twist it a little bit and then show another flat side, and that often shows more depth. So ribbons are generally very, very simple. All you really need to do to draw a standard ribbon is draw 3 lines, 1, 2, and 3, or whichever way you want. Instead, I think I will go ahead and do one over here, so just so we can see the sides. And then we connect. So 1, this can kind of go in the distance here. It doesn't have to connect automatically there. Then this one down here. Actually, sorry about that. That was the wrong way. Let me just try that here. Let me do that again. So let's actually first start off with one side. So we have one side done here, which is one side on the back. Curl that in. Here we have the other side. And then what we can do is we can actually curl that on the other side and then connect it. So basically, ribbons are planes that kind of go into space and have different directions and have a front and back side. So let me do that again just because I kind of messed up a little bit earlier and I just want to correct that. So let's see, 1, let's do this one, 2, and then 3. So let's go ahead and do the first one. So here, connect, just make a little circle. We can even do something like this as well. Then we can connect the second line, curl it, make sure you curl it because it's going in perspective and rounding in. Here is the second side, follow that, and then last one, like so. So generally very, very simple technique. You just got to connect the lines basically, but in a curved way. So that's how you draw a ribbon. Now I can teach you guys how to draw multiple kinds of ribbons, such as a spiraling ribbon. So spiral ribbons are pretty simple, and I think I will teach you guys later on, but basically what you really have to do is understand what a spiral looks like. So a spiral basically just looks like this in its simplest form, right? And then all you really need to do is add some depth to that. So I'm going to go ahead and do a very simple ribbon. Let's do 3. And then I'm going to erase. Then I'm going to do a starting point. So we have one ribbon starting from the top. And then as it wraps around, this changes form. So this will change and kind of spin to a different side. Then this will rotate from the back, which we see the back side here. And then we see the other side of the ribbon, the front side. Here's the ribbon spiraling in. And then here is the other side of the ribbon. So it's a lot of going back and forth. And that shows a lot of depth. So when you draw ribbons like this, or when you draw curls, doing this would make the job a lot easier. And then here we have the ending ribbon. So when it comes to ribbons, it's best when you see multiple sides. So I'll give you an example. If you just see a piece of paper that looks like this, you can just see that's very flat. However, if you draw a corner, let's see a corner that's kind of flipped up a little bit. That gives it more depth, right? But then if you go ahead and do something like one side is kind of curled, one side is more flat, and then one side is more curled up like this, then it becomes a lot more three-dimensional. So I would kind of label this as 1, 2, and 3. And this is similar to the flat box, to the 2D box and the 3D box, right? So the first box would just be like a plain box. Then showing two sides is just a little bit more depth, 1, 2, and then the most depth, which is the one that you want to put the most forward in your composition, is the three-sided box. So it's the same principle, just flat. So 1, 2, and 3. And generally, hair ribbons can be dealt with in this sort of manner. So let's go ahead and draw some other examples. Let me zoom out a little bit. Zooming in, zoom out, there. So let's say, for instance, I have a sphere or a head. So here we have a head, for example. Let's say this is a girl head here, and if we want to draw our hair, we can have a little X, and that's our origin point, and then what we can do is we can just draw flat shapes first. And notice how I always have a, a kind of branching out point. If you want to curl it out a little bit, you can definitely change its form by showing two sides. And basically everything, if you want to make it simpler, just go using very flat and planar shapes. So generally that would be very easy. And I'll go through clumping as well. But yeah, anyways, that's pretty much how you do overlaps here. So if you want to also do another overlap, we can go ahead and do another ribbon. Another ribbon. And of course, don't overdo this, because if you overdo this, then it will look like really fake and just looks like she's, just has paper in her hair. So try not to overdo it. If you want to go ahead and make this more less papery-like or less flimsy or ribbon-like, what you can do is first start off with a ribbon, then go into more depth. So let's say we split this into three parts. So 1, 2, and then let's say an outlier here, 3. And then if you want to go even more, go even more in depth, you can go ahead and add some shapes in between. And then also add a little bit of hair strands just to give it some more depth, right? So that's just something very simple that you can go from simple to complex. And never start with complex right off the bat. Always start with something simple and big. So if I want to draw a wavy ribbon, I can go ahead and just draw three lines again, and then draw in, my curl. I can connect the dots now. Or instead, I can do something like this. And then just do the same thing, make it parallel. Make it as parallel as you can. And then just end the corners. And then what I can do, if you want to shade it, is draw in a little bit of the edge for the wave here, and then I can shade. So let's say, for instance, the light source is on top. So every edge that reaches to the top will be in highlight. So will be in light. So I would like to put in my harsh shadow, and then as it goes away, I'm going to make it just a little bit lighter because there's a bounce light to it. Same thing over here. I'm going to make this super dark. And then as it approaches another peak, I'm going to go a half tone. And then back to a cast shadow again, or back to a main the main shadow. And then halfway point. And as it gets closer to a higher point, then kind of start darkening it again. And that's just the bounce light kind of working back and forth. So if you want to add, more depth into your ribbon, go ahead and just do something like that. Now, if I want to do something like like hair strands, for example, I can go ahead. There's one way to do it. There's one way to do it. First, a very simple kind of flat shape, which is fine. However, I like it more like one strand where I can see one strand. I always thicken and then taper at the end, depending on what the hairstyle is. And then I'm going to turn the shape. And then I'm going to taper it again. That's number 2, which is okay. I like that one as well. However, I always like, the most amount of level of detail I like is I do all 3. So what I mean by that is I do my one side and then my 2 sides, and then I do an extra strand. And that makes it a lot more dynamic and flowing. So that's pretty much it for this video. Let me know what you guys think. I hope that this helped a bunch, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.